Okay, so a bit of history. This is our project. Sydney Metro Northwest was the first part of that. That extends from Cudgegong Road all the way down through to Chatswood. So that's the traditional project. It's been going for a little over 2,500 days, I learned yesterday, and we have about 500 days left until we run the train. So that has been a very long journey. And now we're just about to embark on a much tougher journey, you'd have to say. Going in at Chatswood, coming under here, building a station at Barangaroo, Crow's Nest, interacting with Martin Place, a new station at Pitt Street, Central. What else is there? I always forget Waterloo, and then come out at Sydenham, and we've got an EIS on exhibition at the moment to convert the Bankstown line into Metro standard. So very large projects, very large amounts of money being spent. You talk about industry certainty in the Metro project or program, as we call it now. It's looking over 20 billion. If then we've got plans now to extend Metro out, what we call Metro West, which will be another dual tunnel out from the city to Parramatta. And then from that project on, there's just more speculation and speculation and speculation. But there is commitment within inside the state government to build these very large infrastructure projects. You know, the government's committed to road, rail, and other transport infrastructure, whether or not they're B-lines, you know, the West Connects, all those projects we're committed to build. So there is that commitment from the New South Wales government to keep these building projects going, and so all of the associated industries that support that have some level of certainty, or have quite a bit level of certainty. So Metro prides itself on its sustainability. When it first started in 2011, 2012, it wrote a sustainability strategy. There were about 32 commitments made in that sustainability strategy, ranging from the typical energy saving ones through to water, through to spoil, through to waste, that whole thing. We've now just reviewed it as part of the City and Southwest one. We've increased the commitments to about 42. Again, same areas, same space, but what we've found is that we're picking up the learnings from our previous projects and ramping them up a bit, turning the cogs, trying to get greater efficiency and really trying to push the industry in a sustainable way. So we like to think that we practice what we preach, and that we really put sustainability up there with every other facet of construction. So back in 2011, 2012, we wrote this clause into our contract. I'm not going to read it all, but essentially tells all our contractors that we would like them to consider a lot of these things: energy efficiency, lighting, water saving, natural ventilation, the equipment that you use in there. But something that we thought was going to be acceptable to the contractors. Now, the driver for that was purely efficiency. It was energy efficiency, essentially, and it was efficiency on water. So you'll see there's nothing there about inside plants. You'll see nothing there about amenities. It's all about how much energy does a site should use and how can we reduce it. So it's rather archaic, I would admit, but it just shows that back then, 5 years ago, we were thinking about how these sort of things could be modified, how we could drive change in the industry. And sitting here listening to the other people speak, it was potentially very naive. There's what we found, and what I'll get into on the next couple of slides, very hard to achieve. You'll see the wonderful catchphrase there: we're reasonable and feasible. So that's written into all many of these things. So there was the out phrase. Now, admittedly, all our contractors, they take contract documents very seriously, and they don't just skip out on we're reasonable and feasible. And so where they couldn't achieve one, they had to kind of demonstrate it. So what we found, things like rainwater harvesting, it's something that's achievable, and they don't have to deal with the structure. They can put a side shed there, they can get a tank, and they can plumb it up, and they've got water for their watering their gardens. Things like the air conditioners, they're still the old air conditioners. but all the water's collected from the condensing and put on plants or used around the site that way. One of the main ones, or the ones that they could achieve, energy efficiency lighting, is a simple retrofit. And so they'd go to the suppliers and they might say, okay, well, how can we evolve this? And they might be able to change some of the internal lights. Or the whole clause is around temporary site facilities, so the external lights. All the external lights, all the lights in the car park, all the pedestrian lights are all LED solar. So they came back at us and we're able to hit each point and say, not able to make this, but we're able to do this. We're not able to make this, but we're able to do this. And so essentially it's been nice in a way that this has just been put out there to say, try and achieve it, and they've had their best shot. ISCA has been very good in terms of the crime prevention. In terms of the ISCA credits, all our projects are required to get an ISCA rating, and so they also see this clause in line with getting ISCA points. So in terms of the innovation challenge, they'll take that. The way that us as the government promotes sustainability in our contractors is through benefit payments. So we attach a benefit payment to an ISCA rating. So whichever way one of our constructors can gain more points, that's a quicker way for them to get the incentive payments from us. And a lot of these incentive payments are worth stretching for. And so you'll see all of our contractors really going out of their way to achieve a high score. And if they're able to do it through here, crime prevention's built into ISCA. So when after they put up a site shed, they have to meet the ISCA requirement for SEPTED. So they've been able to achieve that one quite well. Now, I don't want to paint an incredibly pretty picture, because in reality, that is what you see is what you get. This is out on the rail corridor, and like we said before, this is what our guys, this is 90% of what they see on site. A lot of our work at the moment and in future will be with inside the rail corridors, in very condensed areas. The workers come, that is the office / crib hut, and there'll be, like you can see hiding behind it, a portaloo. We have a large workforce, very large workforce, but effectively this is when our contracts will price something, they'll price it, and that is what they will be looking at getting. Now on our larger facilities, so this sort of area where we've got an office space, what a lot of our contractors did and had the benefit of doing was modifying existing buildings. So this is Bella Vista, one of our largest areas. During tunnelling, this was the site where they had all the precast facility. They made all their precast on site. So you'd be getting hundreds of people on that site. It used to be a very large shopping complex, and so what they did there was obviously convert that. So they didn't have to bring in temporary buildings. We also did that at our showground site, and we've taken ownership of the old council chambers there. So I was trying to get a photo of that, but the building is so old that I think my photos turned out black and white and cracked. But I told my wife I wasn't going to tell that one, but I went through with it. So see, that got a better joke than the last one. So yeah, essentially, Metro will continue to push for sustainability in their site sheds, and we totally support ACA and the RCLG in how they would like to push the industry that way. I was involved in both those groups before I jumped the fence, and I'd have to say that it is a slow process. It takes a while, and even back then, Joe wrote the standards, and we've been going backwards and forwards with the industry and the makers to try and talk about how it can be achieved. And so the government certainly doesn't see this as something that we can put in a contract tomorrow and get a huge amount of change on City and Southwest. Most likely not on Bankstown to Sydenham, but there may then be an option in 2023 when we start investing money in Metro West. That is the timeline. We are talking about large timelines on Metro, and so it's a good opportunity now to maybe start in 10 years' time that we see our first sustainable site shed. But that's 10 years into a plan that the government's looking at a 2056 plan for transport, and so that is the long term in this state. So that is it for me. Thank you, Robin.